They laughed at her every single day, because of her broken English. But when danger struck, the very words they mocked became the reason they survived. Maria stood at the edge of the bustling city street, clutching her worn handbag with trembling hands. The sun was just beginning to rise, painting the skyline in soft orange and gold. Cars honked impatiently, people hurried past with phones pressed to their ears, and the smell of fresh bread drifted from a nearby bakery. For most people here, this was just another Monday morning. For Maria, it was the beginning of a new life. She had arrived in this country only 6 months earlier, leaving behind her small village in search of opportunity. Back home, her mother's last words still echoed in her ears. "Don't be afraid of the world, Maria. You carry kindness in your heart, and that is a language everyone understands." Those words gave her courage now as she prepared to enter the tall glass building where she had just been hired as a cleaner. Inside the lobby, polished marble floors reflected the glow of expensive chandeliers. Maria paused, feeling out of place in her simple second-hand shoes. She whispered the room number she had memorized. "Say, Se-ven-teen," she murmured, practicing quietly. She was determined to do well, but there was one challenge she could not escape: her English was broken. She knew only enough words to get by, often stitching them together in odd ways. Conversations left her anxious, worried she would say something wrong, worried people would laugh. And in this building, filled with sharp-dressed workers who spoke quickly and confidently, she knew they would laugh. The elevator doors opened with a soft chime. Maria stepped inside and pressed the button for the 17th floor. As the elevator climbed, her reflection stared back from the mirrored wall, a young woman with tired but determined eyes. She straightened her back. "You can do this, Maria. Just work hard. Just be kind." When the doors opened, she was greeted by the hum of office life. Phones rang, keyboards clicked, and conversations flowed effortlessly around her, too fast for her to catch. She moved quietly toward the cleaning supplies closet, her eyes lowered. But it didn't take long for people to notice her. At the coffee station, 2 employees whispered loudly enough for her to hear. "Hey, new cleaning lady," one said, smirking. "Where you from? Mexico? Colombia? Or maybe Mars?" His friend chuckled. Maria forced a polite smile, her cheeks burning. From small place. Far. Here for work." Her accent was thick. The men mimicked her words, exaggerating her tone. Here for work," they mocked, laughing as they walked away. Maria lowered her gaze and whispered under her breath, "Is okay, Maria. Just work." By lunchtime, the teasing had spread. Every mistake she made, mixing up words, dropping articles, mispronouncing something, became a reason for giggles. When she asked where to throw away the trash, a group of women mocked her sentence structure. One whispered to another, "Honestly, how do they even hire people like her?" Maria pretended not to hear, but inside, her heart sank. She sat alone in the break room that day, eating the sandwich she had packed from home. She had no one to talk to, no one who understood her struggles. She wanted to cry, but instead, she remembered her mother's words again. Kindness is a language everyone understands. So she smiled, even when it hurt. That evening, as she walked home through the noisy streets, Maria thought about her day. The humiliation, the laughter, the loneliness. Maybe I not belong here," she whispered. But then she saw a small child trip on the sidewalk ahead of her. The boy cried out, his toy car rolling into the street. Without hesitation, Maria rushed forward, scooping him up before he stumbled further. She handed the toy back and wiped his tears gently. The child's mother, who had been distracted on her phone, gasped and thanked Maria repeatedly. Maria simply smiled and said, "Is okay. He, safe now." The woman didn't notice her broken English. She only saw the kindness in her eyes. And in that moment, Maria realized something powerful: even if words failed her, her actions could still speak. What Maria didn't know was that this same truth would soon save dozens of lives. The next morning, Maria stood in front of the mirror of her small rented room. The walls were bare, the window cracked, and the hum of traffic outside was constant. She smoothed the wrinkles of her faded uniform, whispered a small prayer, and practiced words under her breath. "Good morn, ing. Excuse me. Where, trash." She repeated them again and again, hoping today would be different. But when she arrived at the office, the laughter began almost instantly. At the front desk, she greeted the receptionist with a shy smile. "Good morn, ing," she said softly. The receptionist, a young woman named Claire, arched an eyebrow. "It's morning, not morn ing," she corrected sharply, emphasizing every syllable. 2 other employees nearby giggled. Maria nodded quickly, lowering her gaze. "Yes. Morn, ing." Claire rolled her eyes. "Whatever." Later, in the hallway, Maria struggled with a heavy trash bag. It slipped from her hands, spilling a few crumpled papers onto the floor. "Careful," a man in a suit snapped. "What are you doing? This isn't your little village street." Sorry. I clean," Maria stammered, crouching to gather the mess. The man shook his head in disbelief. Unbelievable. They hire anyone these days. As he walked away, Maria's face burned with shame. She whispered quietly in Spanish, words of comfort to herself, "Aguanta, Maria, un día mejor vendrá." Hold on, Maria, a better day will come. But no one understood. To them, it sounded like nonsense. By lunchtime, Maria's presence had become the office joke. At the cafeteria, a group of employees sat together, deliberately speaking broken English to mock her. "I go, work now," one said loudly, mimicking her tone. Another laughed, "I clean, trash." The table roared with laughter. Maria passed by with her small lunchbox, her eyes on the floor. She sat alone at the farthest table, eating quietly, willing herself not to cry. But inside, her spirit cracked a little more. That evening, Maria stopped by the corner grocery store on her way home. She counted the few bills in her wallet carefully before buying bread, milk, and a small bag of rice. The shopkeeper, an older man with kind eyes, noticed her accent when she thanked him. "New here?" he asked gently. Maria nodded. "Yes. I from far. Work, office clean." The man smiled warmly. "Your English will improve, don't worry. People are cruel sometimes, but don't let them steal your dignity. This country, it tests everyone." His words, though simple, felt like a balm on Maria's wounded heart. For the first time that day, she felt seen. But the next day at work, the ridicule continued. In the break room, two employees were talking when Maria entered. "Hey, Maria," one of them called out mockingly. "Say, refrigerator." Maria hesitated, then tried, "Frid-air-rator." They burst into laughter. "Oh my God, that's hilarious. Say it again." Her hands shook as she poured coffee. No, work now. Work now, work now," they mimicked, laughing harder. Maria bit her lip, fighting tears. She wanted to scream, to tell them she was trying, that she had left everything behind to be here. But the words stuck in her throat, tangled by fear and broken English. So she stayed silent. That night, lying in bed, Maria stared at the cracked ceiling. She felt small, invisible, and powerless. "Maybe they right," she whispered. "Maybe stupid. Maybe I never learn." But then she remembered the little boy she had helped on the street, and the gratitude in his mother's eyes. She remembered her mother's voice, soft and strong. "Kindness is a language everyone understands." Maria wiped her tears and whispered, "I try, again." She didn't know that fate was preparing a test far greater than mocking coworkers. A test that would prove her broken English was not weakness, but strength. It was a Thursday morning. The office buzzed with its usual rhythm, phones ringing, keyboards clattering, voices echoing down the hallways. Maria moved quietly between cubicles, her cart rattling as she collected trash and wiped down desks. To her, it felt like any other day. But destiny had different plans. Around mid-morning, Maria stepped into the supply closet to restock cleaning spray. She paused, tilting her head. Sniff. Sniff. Her brow furrowed. Something didn't smell right. It wasn't the usual chemical scent of bleach or the faint aroma of coffee drifting from the break room. This smell was different, sharp, metallic, with a sting that clung to the back of her throat. Maria froze. Her years of working in different buildings had taught her to recognize certain dangers. This smelled like gas. Quickly, she stepped into the hallway. "Excuse me," she said urgently to a man passing by. "Smell bad. Gas." The man raised an eyebrow. "Gas? What are you talking about?" She pointed toward the vents. "Smell, here. Dangerous." He sniffed dramatically, then laughed. "Oh, please. That's just the air conditioning." He waved her off. Maria shook her head. "No, is danger. We go outside." But he smirked and walked away. "Maybe you should go outside. Leave the rest of us alone." Undeterred, Maria hurried to the break room, where a group of employees were chatting. "Please," she said, her voice trembling but firm. "Smell, gas. We must go out." One woman chuckled. "Here we go again. Can't even say a full sentence, but suddenly she's a safety expert." Another man laughed. "What's next, Maria? Aliens invading?" The room erupted in laughter. Maria's heart pounded. Her broken English made her sound uncertain, but her instincts screamed louder than their mockery. She raised her voice. "Listen. Gas, boom. We go now." The laughter died for a second. A few employees exchanged uneasy looks. Then, without warning, bang! A muffled explosion shook the floor beneath them. The lights flickered. The building groaned as if waking from a nightmare. Panic erupted instantly. People screamed, chairs toppled, coffee spilled across the floor. The sharp scent of gas flooded the air, undeniable now. Maria didn't wait. She ran to the fire alarm and pulled it with all her strength. WEOO. 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 Red lights flashed. Sirens blared. The office descended into chaos. "Follow me," Maria shouted, her voice cutting through the panic. "This way, rapido. Fast." The same people who mocked her minutes ago now looked to her with wide, terrified eyes. She guided them down the nearest stairwell, her small figure leading the rush of frightened workers. Some stumbled, some cried, but Maria kept shouting simple words. Go. Down. Safe. Her broken English, once a target of jokes, now carried the power of survival. On the ground floor, smoke began to curl from the vents. Maria covered her mouth with her sleeve and urged others to do the same. Cloth. Nose. Quick, she yelled. They obeyed, coughing and choking, but alive. Finally, bursting through the emergency exit doors, the group stumbled into the sunlight. Fire trucks wailed in the distance, speeding toward the building. The employees gasped for air, trembling, their faces pale with shock. And at the center of it all stood Maria, the woman they had mocked, the janitor with broken English, the one they never took seriously. She had saved them. The employees huddled together in the parking lot, coughing, eyes watering from smoke. Sirens wailed louder as fire trucks screeched to a halt. Firefighters leapt into action, unrolling hoses and shouting commands. Everyone's nerves were frayed, their hands shaking as they clung to one another. But one thing was undeniable, they were alive. And it was because of Maria. The office manager, Mr. Taylor, stumbled forward, his usually composed face pale and streaked with sweat. He looked at Maria as if seeing her for the first time. You saved us," he whispered, voice trembling. Maria shook her head quickly. "No. I only see danger." She placed a hand on her chest. "God, help me speak." But Mr. Taylor insisted, louder this time, "No, Maria. If you hadn't warned us, if you hadn't pulled that alarm, we'd all still be inside when the explosion hit." The group murmured in agreement. People who once ignored her now stared with gratitude shining in their eyes. Suddenly, another explosion echoed from deep inside the building, a thunderous blast that sent flames shooting through a window. The crowd screamed and ducked. Glass shattered across the pavement. The reality hit them hard. If Maria hadn't acted when she did, dozens of lives would have been lost. One woman covered her mouth, tears streaming down her face. She was right, all along. Another man muttered, guilt heavy in his tone, "We laughed at her. We didn't listen." As firefighters rushed past, one paused to thank Maria. "Ma'am, you saved these people. That alarm gave us extra minutes. Minutes matter. You're a hero." Maria's eyes widened. A hero? No one had ever called her that before. For so long, she had been invisible, the cleaner, the immigrant, the woman with broken English. Now, suddenly, she stood at the center, the one everyone looked to with awe. Hours later, when the flames were finally under control, the employees gathered again. They were shaken but safe. Some had minor injuries, but no lives were lost. Mr. Taylor addressed the group. His voice carried the weight of the day's events. "Today, we learned something important," he began. "It's not how perfect your English is, or how expensive your suit is, or what title you carry that makes you valuable. Sometimes, wisdom comes from the most unexpected places. And today, Maria," he turned toward her, his eyes filled with respect, "you were our protector. You were our leader." The group broke into applause, genuine and heartfelt. Some employees even wept openly. Maria, embarrassed, shook her head and tried to wave it away. No, only do what is right." But for once, no one dismissed her words. They honored them. Later that night, when the building was cordoned off and everyone was free to go home, Maria sat quietly on a bench outside. She pulled out her phone and stared at a picture of her daughter, Sophia. A tear rolled down her cheek. In her heart, she whispered, "Mija, maybe one day, you will not be ashamed of Mama's English." Today, Mama's words saved lives. She clutched the phone to her chest, eyes lifting to the stars. For the first time in years, Maria didn't feel small. She felt powerful. The following week, the office reopened in a temporary location while repairs began. Employees trickled in, but something had shifted. The atmosphere was different, humbler, softer, more human. For years, Maria had been invisible to them. Now, whenever she entered the room, conversation stopped, not in mockery, but in respect. People smiled at her, greeted her, even stood up to help her with heavy supplies. Maria wasn't used to this sudden attention. She walked with her head lowered, mumbling, "Gracias, Thank you, gracias, whenever someone acknowledged her. But deep down, her heart swelled with pride. One morning, the staff gathered in the temporary conference hall. Mr. Taylor stood at the front with a small box in his hands. Before we begin today's meeting, he announced, there's something we need to do. A gesture to show our gratitude. He beckoned Maria forward. Maria froze, her cleaning cart still in her grip. Me? No, sir. I only clean. But the employees urged her on. Go, Maria, someone shouted. You deserve this. Hesitantly, she walked up. Her hands trembled as she accepted the small velvet box. Inside, a golden pin gleamed, the company's highest honor for service and bravery. Mr. Taylor pinned it gently onto her uniform. Maria, you saved us. This is the least we can do. You reminded us that leadership isn't about titles, but about courage. The room erupted into applause once again. This time, Maria's tears fell freely. From that day on, her role in the company changed. Employees began seeking her advice, not just in emergencies, but in everyday life. They noticed how she listened, how she cared, how she carried herself with quiet dignity. One young woman who used to mock Maria's broken English even approached her after work. I want to apologize, she said, voice shaking. I laughed at you, but you're stronger than all of us. Will you forgive me? Maria's smile was gentle. We all learn. That is life. The young woman hugged her, sobbing. It was a moment Maria would never forget. Outside of work, Maria's story spread. The firefighters who had witnessed her quick actions told the local news. Soon, headlines read, Immigrant worker saves office from tragedy. Woman with broken English becomes unexpected hero. When Maria saw her face on the TV screen that night, she covered her mouth in shock. Sophia, her daughter, squealed with pride. Mama, you are famous. Everyone knows you are a hero. Maria hugged her tightly, whispering, not famous, only grateful. Grateful we are alive. But inside, she knew this moment mattered. Not for glory, but for dignity. For every time she had been dismissed, overlooked, or mocked, this was her answer. Months later, the company held a memorial event to honor the resilience of its employees. Maria was invited to speak. At first, she panicked. My English, not good, she told Mr. Taylor. But he smiled reassuringly. Maria, your English is perfect. Because it comes from the heart. So, she stood on stage in front of hundreds of people. Her voice shook, her grammar was broken, but her message was clear. I am not smart with words. But I know this, kindness, courage, is language everyone understands. That day, I only do what is right. You all would do same. I thank God, and I thank you. The audience rose to their feet in thunderous applause, tears in their eyes. For Maria, it wasn't just about surviving a fire. It was about reclaiming her worth, proving that a voice, no matter how imperfect, can still save lives. That night, when she tucked Sophia into bed, the little girl looked up at her with shining eyes. Mama, she whispered, I want to be like you when I grow up. Maria kissed her forehead softly. Then, Mija, you already are. They mocked her broken English. They dismissed her as less. But in the moment of truth, her words, her courage, and her heart became the very reason they lived. And from that day forward, no one dared underestimate Maria again.